This presentation will explore the areas of conformity in group processes, presented by me, Erin McClear. This week's reading material includes Caston's Social Psychology, Chapters 7 and 8, and 2 journal articles by Reese and Hawley. In Chapter 7 in Social Psychology covers the topic of conformity, which is behavior that is in line with social standards or rules. The chapter hits several aspects that contribute to conformity, such as majority and minority influences and culture. We will be looking at the positives and negatives of conformity, as well as some reasons for conformity. Chapter 8 is about group processes and covers areas such as group membership, group performance, and conflict. Group processes is an important topic to social psychology because it examines how people behave and function in groups. The first topic of group processes will be group identity. I will discuss how groups form and look at the positives and negatives of group identity. We will also be looking at some examples of group membership. Our next topic under group processes will be groupthink. Groupthink is the desire for a group to be in agreement of decisions. This leads the group to make rash and inappropriate decisions. We will look at the positives, negatives, and solutions to groupthink. All of those areas give us information on how people are influenced by groups. Our journal articles of this week include Exploring Social Identity Theory and Black Sheep Effect Among College Athletes and Non-Athletes by Hawley, and The Myth of Conformity: Adolescents' Abstention from Unhealthy Drinking Behaviors by Reese. Hawley's article explores social identity theory and black sheep effect among college athletes and how athlete status differs from non-athletes and the bias non-athletes have against athletes. We will see how different groups handle group membership and conflict. Reese's article takes a closer look into conformity among teenage drinking. Researchers examine the role of majority and minority influences on drinking behaviors in adolescents. Our first topic is conformity. Conformity is when people change their views or behavior to fit in with group norms. The push for conformity puts pressure on individuals to comply with what is socially acceptable. Conformity can be seen in fashion, politics, lingos, or phrases. Conformity limits individuality. A nonconformist is when views stand out from group norms. Some people do not want to admit to conforming to norms, but it's not always a bad thing. To some degree, it is necessary to conform so people can be a community and be able to be around each other with limited problems. There are instances where conformity is not a good thing, especially with risky behaviors among teens. This tends to happen in high school social group settings. Adolescents are basically ridiculed if they do not conform. If they do not conform to group norms, the chances of them fitting in the group is slim. People conform to 2 reasons. One being that they want to follow something that is right, and if more people in the group approve it, it must be right. Secondly, people conform because they fear rejection of being different. This is especially true with teenagers because they are trying to find their identity and will go to extreme measures to fit in. There will be tension in groups if there is not a balance of individuality and group membership. Now that we understand conformity, we'll be moving into group identity. Group identity information come in a variety of forms. Groups are made up of people who have things in common with each other and over time share a common identity. There could be sport team groups, church groups, band groups, and many others. Groups are an important part of society. More things can be accomplished as a group because everyone plays a role and contributes their gifts to the group. Everyone at some point has been a part of a group, whether it was for school, work, or different sports teams. Not only are people protected in groups, it also serves to increase social and personal identity. As shown in Hawley's article, Exploring Social Identity Theory and Black Sheep Effect Among College Student Athletes and Non-Athletes, there were 2 different scenarios on how groups handled conflict with a member. One football player, Michael Vick, got in trouble with the NFL for going against the organization's conduct. He was suspended due to being part of dogfighting. The reactions from his team were interesting. His inner group supported and defended him. He had a strong degree of group membership, and it was thought that they were more accepting of his behavior due to not breaking team-specific rules. This can be the downfall of group identity. Another team was not as forgiving as Vic's team. Sean Avery, a hockey player, was caught bad-mouthing a teammate's girlfriend. This was a set group understanding not to do. Avery's team and coach totally disregarded him and because he made the team look bad. This is known as the black sheep effect, when the group judges harshly to the non-conforming member. Every group is different and handles group membership in their own way. Now we are moving into how groups make decisions. According to Kassin in social psychology, groupthink is an excessive tendency to seek concurrence, which is agreement and uniformity among group members. Groupthink makes an appearance when the need for agreement trumps motivation for accurate information. There are 3 ways a group is susceptible to groupthink. A highly cohesive group may fall to groupthink due to the members not expressing their own opinions. Group structure also plays into the role of groupthink. If there is a strong leader and not a decision-making process in place, that allows groupthink to happen. Lastly, stressful situations cause urgency to prevail over accurate decisions. There can be some positive aspects of groupthink, even though most of the time it is labeled as negative. One positive outlook on groupthink is that there is harmonious decisions and cooperation. The group will likely stay in agreement with one another. A negative of groupthink is discouragement of creativity. Typically, one leader will make the decisions for the group and the others will follow. Here are some ways to reduce groupthink. Avoid isolation. Before making decisions, consult with outside groups and gain their knowledge or view. The leader of the group should encourage everyone to state their opinion early so they are heard and fair discussion can take place. Lastly, having a second meeting time should be set to make sure the group has had enough time to think about their decisions. Our next 2 topics will cover the influences of conformity, starting with the majority. A majority influence often targets smaller groups to conform to social norms. Majorities are known to hold more power and will put stress and pressure on individuals to conform. Majority influence mainly focus on norms that empower them as a group. Majority groups want to dictate the norms and establish social control. Like the concept of groupthink, majority influence does not encourage individuality. People will conform to the majority rule instead of speaking up. People, especially teens, will follow the majority because they want to follow something that is right. The majority is usually seen as the right thing. Even if someone has a different opinion, they are more than likely going to follow the majority just to fit in. This is true in Reese's article. The researchers found that among drinking teens, the majority greatly influenced the minority to partake in drinking behaviors because it seemed like the right thing and cool thing to do. Now moving on to the minority influence. Minorities are known to be nonconformists. The minority influence wants to create change within the group. The minorities want the group to accept their opinions even if it's not the popular one. Minorities are often rejected in the group for being different than everyone else. Although minorities can be disliked, they can grab the attention of majorities if they do it the right way. If the minority of the group is forceful and persistent in their view, yet flexible, they can actually get the majority to listen to them. If they are repetitive enough, it can cause pressure for the majority to give it a chance and rethink their position. Consistency lets the majority know that they are serious. Minorities are known to be committed to their views, resulting in a deep passion. In the Reese articles, researchers found that minorities can be strong against conformity when there are more than one in the group. If a minority is alone in their non-drinking position around the majorities that drink, they will likely start to drink. If the minority has a friend with the same stance to not drink, they are more likely to abstain from drinking because they are not alone. In review, conformity is the changing of behaviors to fit in with group norms. Groups put pressure on individuals to comply to social standards. Complying with group norms indicates that the individual is wanting to fit in. Teenagers are more likely to conform to risky behaviors because they are navigating their identity and want to fit in socially. Conformity has its ups and downs. Group identity is the sense of membership within the group. There could be many forms of groups, but usually groups are made up of people who have similar backgrounds or interests and then later share a common identity. Groups are important because more things can be accomplished as a group. Everyone works together to complete a common goal. Each group handles membership differently. As discussed earlier, Michael Vick's team defended his deviant behavior, while Sean Avery's team disowned his behavior because he made the whole group look bad. Groupthink analyzes how people make decisions. Specifically, groupthink is when there's a need for agreement and accurate information gets lost. Groupthink tends to happen when there's a strong leader and not a consistent decision-making process in place. In order to overcome groupthink, it would be a good idea for everyone to share their ideas early in the decision-making process so everyone is heard and opinions can be taken into consideration. It would also be wise to hold a second meeting to make sure everyone gets time to think about the decision. The majority is a strong influence to get people to conform. The majority has power, and people will follow it because they assume the majority is right. Again, teenagers will go all out in order to fit in with the crowd. Much like groupthink, the majority limits individuality. A person is either with the crowd or against it. The minority is known to have less power, but they are able to grab the attention of the majority if it is done the right way. The minorities have to be consistent and persistent in their view. Eventually, it will put pressure on the majority to give their opinions a chance. Consistency shows that their minorities are serious about their position. Minorities are passionate and committed to their stance because they want to change their views of the majority. These 5 topic areas help us understand how groups influence behaviors of individuals. Here are our 2 questions that will help us apply what we have learned to the Bible and to ourselves and into others. Our first question is, how did Jesus set the tone for us and how he treated the black sheep in society? And our second question, how do you see conformity among yourself or in others?